Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Rav Gottlieb's articles. We're in the back of giving the last part of the 8th essay, How It Feels to Begin to Give Selflessly. As you can hear, I'm a little under the weather. I've already made a blessing. So, in any case, very happy to be able to still give over and learn with you. Just give me a moment. I'll pull up the live stream in case we have anyone tuning in, have any questions, and the like. We're close to the bottom of page 175. Contrary to our nature. The Rebbe Shlita continues from where we left off. How does the overriding significance of mitzvot between an individual and God fit in with the saying of the sages, quote, hospitality is greater than receiving the divine presence, from Masechet Shabbat of the Talmud 127a. Haven't we been saying that hospitality is just the means, but the goal is receiving the divine presence? The answer is built on a distinction between two states in the service of God. A. The state of doing spiritual work is called bringing in guests. That is hospitality. Our inclination toward the good is considered a guest because we are only occasionally conscious of this aspect of ourselves. Our desire to give, our nefesh elokis being awakened and put to the forefront, the godly soul, this is the guest. The truth is, it's the dweller, it's part of the family, it is our ultimate essence, it is the real us, but its true nature and the points of time that it illuminates and actualizes by giving truly to the other or to the Creator happens seldomly, and therefore it's considered a guest. So he continues, our spiritual labor to give supremacy to our good inclination is therefore called, quote, bringing in guests. This is the spiritual work that opposes our self-centered nature. All of the self-centered natures that we have to provide an opposing force in order to correct it. We desire to receive, so we have to give. We desire to understand, so we have to go above our understanding. And B, receiving the divine presence is the reward. This comes after we complete our work on bringing in the good inclination. That is, when our inclination toward the good dominates our intentions. At this time, the purpose of creation is fulfilled, for God is revealed to us. It seems to be saying that when the guest becomes a permanent dweller, and our desire to give, which is normally a guest, becomes the state of being that's always enacted, then we are in the right mode to be able to receive the presence of the divine. This example is best given over by means of last week's Parsha, Parshas Vayera, where Avraham Avinu, the very beginning of the Parsha, is experiencing divine revelation, and even so halts his experience in order to go serve the guests. And so we learn from this that it is more important to serve the other and to serve the guest and to be focused and connected to the guest than the Creator himself. The truth is, as we're learning here, by means of the giving and by means of welcoming the guest again and again until that guest becomes family, so to speak, that is the work to build the vessels to eventually receive the divine presence in full with proper intention. There's steps. The Rebbe Shlita continues. Now we can interpret the saying, quote, hospitality is greater than receiving the divine presence. It comes to tell us that even after we have arrived at the purpose of creation, when we are receiving the divine presence, we should prefer to continue doing spiritual work, to continue bringing in the guest, which is our good inclination. For even when we have gotten to our spiritual destination, we need to constantly renew our love for God. The renewal of love is achieved by never ceasing the spiritual work. This is totally beyond understanding to consider that there are spiritual masters again and again in every generation who have reached the absolute pinnacle of spirituality, dveikus itself, adhesion with the Creator and their consciousness in totality, and by their own accord, by their own free will, decide to go down a level. They decide to go back to the spiritual work in contrast to the spiritual reward that is at the end of the road when we finish the job and finish our personal correction, our personal tikkun. And so these righteous individuals go back down. Why? Because they love the Creator and they want to show the Creator that their love is unconditional. They don't need the infinitely blissful reward of the divine presence being revealed to them. They're okay with doing the spiritual work and welcoming the guests. It's a wondrous thing. The Rebbe Shita continues. Bal Hasula mentions that a certain percentage of people are born with an altruistic nature, and also among them there are differences of degree in altruism. What is the spiritual work of such people if their nature is already to be giving? Although much good work can be done in the spirit of altruism, nonetheless, the true spiritual work is to connect everything to God. The altruist nature is good, and in general, the altruist does not have to overcome his or her nature. However, the altruist must believe that the need to help others is not because it's the altruist nature, but because that's the way to unite with God, who is good and beneficent. If someone has this natural nature, they need to focus and tell themselves and believe that the goodness that they're doing for others and the connections they're making by means of the goodness that they're doing for others is all a means to connect to the Creator and is not alone by their own accord, because in the end, who gave them that nature? The Creator. And this is a primary principle of our work, is that we want to connect everything to the Creator, all thought, speech, and action. The particular form of service required of the altruist is to increase faith, increase emunah. The altruist may be good at responding to the distress of others, but this is not necessarily out of faith in God. The test will be when the altruist has to act contrary to his or her nature. For example, once I was acquainted with someone who had a giving nature, and all his life was completely devoted to helping other people. But one day, he called me on the phone and said angrily, "Why does the Torah say that someone who is taking a walk and sees a bird with chicks is required to send the mother away and take the chicks? That's cruel and completely unacceptable to me." End quote. This altruist failed the test to act contrary to his nature when God required it, which could be a reason in itself. Normally, that mitzvah of shliach hakan, sending away the mother bird and taking her eggs, or making at least an acquisition on the eggs. The truth is, one can raise the eggs, a tefach, at least a fistful, and think in their minds that they're making a kinyan on it, they're acquiring it, and they can put it right back down. Some people have the custom, because it turns into a mitzvah item, and you've done a mitzvah by means of the egg, that they actually take it home and cook it. They want to make use of the mitzvah item, so they use it for another mitzvah, and they make a blessing on it and eat it. Everyone's got their thing. But it's mitzvot like that. It's a prime example of times that the Creator, who has given us an exacting blueprint to develop ourselves spiritually, with different mitzvot pertaining to different aspects of our spiritual soul and spiritual body, the organs and sinews of our spiritual being, and at times the resistance and going above one's knowledge and intellect and logic. In the case of this altruist with this particular mitzvah, sending with the mother bird, that would have been a great mitzvah for that person in particular. Whereas the good that they normally do might not be regarded as so great based on the principle of the fum tzara agra. According to the difficulty is the reward. If someone's altruistic by nature, then it's not so difficult for them to be giving. It could be specifically in those types of scenarios where they have to put on a masach, a screen on their own desire and their own understanding, and work with faith and go above their knowledge and logic and work in emunah. Thank you, Abraham Avi. Thank you for tuning in. This is the third one of this essay. The essay is called How It Feels to Begin to Give Selflessly, written by Harav Gottlieb. It's English translation in the back of Giving. The Baal Sulam's Matan Torah, as translated by Arya Siegel. You can find it on pretty much any book website, Amazon, the publishers, Urim publishers. But glad you enjoy. Let's continue. The Rebbe Shita continues. Actually, not only the altruist, but all of us are to be judged by our preparedness to act contrary to our nature. Although we described how interpersonal mitzvot can develop our spiritual character, their true test is when they require us to overcome our nature. We find an example of this when King David, before his death, ordered his son Solomon, Shlomo Melech, to kill two people. One of them had only cursed the king. Generally, we would expect that someone about to die, King David in this case, would be inclined to be kind and forgive such a thing. So why, in his last moments, did King David request that this deed be punished? The answer is that King David didn't want to react when he was angry and full of strength. That would have been the natural thing to do. King David wanted to act only due to the mitzvah of God to punish such a sin. The Torah does not enable a king to forgive the degrading of his honor, as it could be, at least in that parameter, in that mitzvah of having to honor the flesh and blood king of Israel, that the flesh and blood king is a symbol of the king of all kings. The same way that we are to honor our parents, and the extent and importance given to honoring one's parents is grand. And the commentators give it importance akin to honoring the Creator himself, because our parents, in essence, were co-creators. As it's written, the father gives the white, the mother gives the red, and the Creator gives the soul. There is three partners in the creation of a being. Of course, it's all Hashem in the end of the day, but This is just proving the point that just like we honor our parents, so too a big brother has the same halachic requirement of honor akin to a father. And so too, the king of Israel requires great honor. So if one was to dishonor the king, based on the principle that one is to employ the consciousness of giving that individual the honor and respect akin to the Creator, so there is a mitzvah to punish that sin, to punish that misalignment of consciousness, and to kill that person. So King David waited for a situation in which it would be against his nature. And only then he demanded that this law be followed. His request that Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, kill the cursor was therefore an act of devotion to God's will. If he got caught up in his initial anger, perhaps in the instance that he found out that there was some type of desecration of his honor, if he reacted instantly, the jerk reaction of his ego to kill the individual, then that may not be regarded a mitzvah at his level. For what it is, it's still doing the mitzvah, but at his level of spiritual consciousness, which surely at that age was the greatest, he was certainly in Dvekus and knew the great secrets of the Torah. So at his level, it was necessary to have the right intention. And therefore, specifically in the case where he had to go above his nature and above his logic and understanding, be it right before his own death, then he employs Solomon to do the mitzvah. This reminds me of the Baal HaSulam's mother. I read this in the English translation of HaSulam, biography on the Baal HaSulam written by the Rebbe Shlita. The English translation is called Master of the Ladder, as translated by Yedida Cohen. An amazing work, really one of my favorite books. Highly recommend to anyone. And in the beginning chapter, it describes that his mother was an educator, and in her great sensitivity to his upbringing, as he was an only child for 10 years. And part of that upbringing was that when she found herself to be swayed by her anger, if he was to do something, as children do, that she would stop herself and she would wait a couple days, and then she would bring it up to him, and she would give him the proper tochacha, the proper reprovement, the proper attempt to refine his character and show him the good way. But it was specifically in a time where she was in control of her emotions and her state of consciousness, as opposed to being swayed by the wave of anger, that she was able to properly do the mitzvah of raising children in the ways of the Torah and the mitzvot. A thing to contemplate relative to this last example of the essay regarding dishonoring the king of Israel. And I'm sorry to leave on this bittersweet note. I say sweet because all things that are bitter are sweet in the end, and all things that are sweet are bitter in the end. But how often do we dishonor the King of all kings? The mitzvah in a time that there is a king of Israel, if he is dishonored, I don't know what the exact parameters are, details of the mitzvah are, but that person is killed. How much more so should a person be killed by dishonoring the King of all kings? Right? Just logic. A kal v'chomer, and all the more so, string of logic. And I think it's a good point of meditation to think about and contemplate how often we dishonor the King of all kings, even in our service, of not having intention with something as simple as a blessing. And when we experience an illumination from the Creator in the midst of learning or prayer and the like, and I heard this from the Rebbe Shlita over Shabbos, when we experience such a thing, according to the Eish Kodesh, the Rebbe of Piazesna, we need to bring that inspiration, we need to bring that light and energy, that illumination that the Creator gave us, which is a gift, into action. We We need to turn it into a mitzvah. We need to do something positive with that illumination. So we need to learn some Torah. We need to read a chapter of Psalms, of Tehillim. We need to do something positive with that energy. The Rebbe Shlita said, if not, if someone just sits back there and is high off of the experience of the Creator and doesn't do anything with it, then it falls into the category of demons and evil spirits. What does that mean? As we learn in the Midrash, a demon was supposed to be some type of subhumanoid helper to humans. And the way it's described is that the Creator ran out of time as Shabbos was coming in, so he couldn't finish the creation of the demon. So the demon was forever stuck in this limbo state of being neither a physical or a spiritual being, something infinitely stuck in the middle. When the Bala Sulam met with Ben Gurion, as he met with him several times, but one of the times that they met, Ben Gurion asked him, do demons exist? And the Bala Sulam says to him, yes, they are the aspects of your consciousness that stop you from going through with what you wanted to do. I'm paraphrasing here. Point being, when we want to do something positive, start a new thing, serve the Creator, honor the Creator, whatever it may be, you can think of anything. A matter of our consciousness, the doubts and the lowly feelings of self and the like are called demons or evil spirits, meaning it's an aspect of our consciousness that halts us and stops us from doing the right thing and following through with the positive actions that we want to make. So to connect that to the notion of our necessity to honor the King of all Kings and appreciating how we're still alive right here, right now, listening to a class on Torah and connecting together and being involved in Torah and mitzvot and good deeds, everyone at their degree. It's amazing. It's an amazing gift to contemplate the infinite kindness, the supernal kindness and mercy of being able to survive despite our ignorance, despite falling back and taking all the gifts that we get from the Creator for granted and not saying thank you for the infinite blessings that we have, and letting the inspiration from the illuminations that we get fall into the categories of demons or evil spirits by not actualizing the positive things that we want to do by means of the illuminations we got from the Creator. So by God's hand, Zat Hashem, we'll be able to merit to honoring Him and becoming more aware of Him slowly but surely. Thank you for tuning in. The next essay in this series is called The Spiritual Path, Short or Long? Till next time. Shalom, shalom. All the best.